Jay.
Yes,
when
Matthew.
You ski, I assume, right? Growing up in Australia, right?
Not really.
Yeah.
It's quite a warm climate. It's a very warm
How
climate.
do you? I mean, I'm looking at Sean White over here. I'm just like curious, like when you ski, how do you like turn? Do you slalom?
Slalom.
So what do you?
It's a good word. It's underused slalom.
I don't
That's how you
ski.
pronounce
You
it.
don't ski?
No, I just have
What
a
do you-
jacket on.
You just
It's
have
a hockey jacket.
So a hockey jacket, yeah. They skate. In
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. All right, fine. Skate us back. You know.
Slalom.
Yeah. It is, but isn't that what you do in skiing? You slalom?
Slalom, yeah.
Am I wrong, guys?
think
Someone
that's
get
an
in my
event.
ear and tell me I'm wrong.
Fantasy Football Happy Hour with Matthew Berry, served by Applebee's.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour, home of the slalom, as some would say. I'm Connor Rogers, alongside Matthew Berry, Lawrence Jackson, Jay Croucher. Fellas, we got a lot to get through today.
A young
Including
Connor
the fact
Rogers.
I was a young Connor Rogers. I was proven right on the slalom, brother. We looked that up. It means to like swerve and swim. I obviously was joking about you growing up skiing in Australia, land of the kangaroos.
You thought we ski there.
Look, 1,000%. Like, that one just went totally over your head.
Yeah, I didn't.
Wasn't a joke
I don't
at all.
ski.
I know you don't ski,
Yeah.
but neither did when I was like clearly as a young boy in Australia, land of like kangaroos and desert. You know what I mean? Like it's obviously you don't
We do have
ski
mountains
in.
there. Well, two things. One,
Yes.
I was going to say, young Connor Rogers looked absolutely terrified in that clip of the conversation that you were instigating to his left. Secondly, yeah, it's like asking someone from Denmark. You guys play like a lot of volleyball? in
Right,
Denmark?
exactly.
Board.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe,
yeah,
maybe
yeah,
not.
I think-
By
y'all
the way,
think- y'all think-
Denmark might be a volleyball. I mean, how do we
Exactly,
know?
might be.
Like you
Australia
don't
might
know.
be a
What
skiing
do you got,
country.
Lawrence?
Y'all think I used to ski when I was growing up in Atlanta?
Yes, of course, obviously.
I don't even-
Yeah,
Take the odds of
exactly.
no.
Exactly.
You're right. I am the
Mean streets of Atlanta. Of course you did.
So we are going to talk some football today. We got Roto World headlines to get through
Yes.
before we preview all of the action over the weekend.
We're going four wide again today.
Four
very,
wide.
Very Kingsbury-esque. One
Yes.
of us
Air
may be on
raid.
one of us may be on a one-way trip to Thailand if this does not go well.
The air raid desk continues on. And fellas, I had nothing to do with this. I want to make this clear.
Sure.
Where we are starting is the Jets are interviewing former Broncos head coach Nathaniel Hackett.
There we
The
go.
incredible run Nathaniel Hackett had with the Broncos.
Excited?
Yeah,
Excited,
I
Connor?
cannot be more excited as the
Bron-
Jets look for a play caller.
Broncos ranked last in total points and in total points per game this season. They were granted a franchise quarterback.
Is that
and,
bad?
I mean, but maybe it's this. Maybe it's this. They're like, look, we need somebody that made Russell Wilson look like Zach Wilson. And you know what? We need somebody that's comfortable with inefficient quarterback play. We need somebody that understands how to call a play on 3rd and 15 when you've taken a sack and then thrown 2 incompletions or whatever. So I think this makes a lot of sense for the New York
Them
Jets.
numbers.
He doesn't have to learn a new last name. He just all his plays like Wilson do this, Wilson do that.
True.
Now.
He's on a little circuit of just going around to breaking Wilsons around the league. I
Yes.
believe it was actually Nathaniel Hackett who pushed the volleyball Wilson in Castaway out into the ocean.
That
and
could
then
be
came
it.
back, so it was actually Nathaniel Hackett.
That's a very interesting take.
By the
right
way,
there.
some of us haven't seen Castaway. Why? What are you doing?
No, come on.
Come on! Oh my
1999,
God! He just
2001.
ruined that movie too.
What about the
You're the
volleyball?
worst.
Spoiled castaway.
Spoiled Castaway.
Fun.
He can't be stopped at this point.
Divisional round. It's everything. It's every
Lawrence,
man
what
for
do you got?
himself.
Maybe they now I'm really thinking about what Matthew just said. Thank you for putting that in my head. Maybe they finally trying to put Nathaniel Hackett back with Aaron Rodgers or something. Maybe we was talking about it last summer, like, oh, this means it's a chance he go to the Broncos. Then boom, I like your idea better though, just because both the names is Wilson.
Yeah.
But you never know what they got what they need. They got everything except the coordinator and the quarterback. So maybe they match those two back up. He got 2 MVPs with him. I don't know. We'll see.
It has not been. It's not official. He's just interviewing
Yeah,
the guy.
and it's a long list
And by
of
the way,
interviewees.
I mean Hackett and Robert Saleh both worked on the Jacksonville staff in 2015, and so this may also just be Saleh just trying to do a solid for his boy because Hackett obviously has just been. I mean, honestly, I just made a joke about him right now. I mean, it's just
Running joke.
his reputation has taken a massive hit this entire season. A lot of people, including myself, have made jokes at Nathaniel Hackett's expense. Deserved or not, we don't know. How much of that was him? How much of that was Russell Wilson? Either way, it was an unmitigated disaster in Denver this year. There's no question about that. And so this may just be Saleh trying to, get his name back out there.
Yeah, coaching Zach Wilson's a soft landing from the disaster in Denver.
I just try to put him out there in the
Absolutely.
That happens though. That does happen in the
Absolutely.
NFL.
Right, yeah, for
People
sure,
try to help each other out and that kind of stuff, and just mention it just to try to get them get a coach some heat.
Yep.
As it were, because there's no one ice colder than Nathaniel Hackett.
Nobody.
Except maybe Brandon Staley.
I mean,
But he still has a
still
job.
has a job, though, so that's why you would still go with Hackett.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Hackett.
Speaking of still has a job, this one a little bit of a surprise. The Pittsburgh Post-Gazette's Jerry Dulac reports the Steelers have no plans to replace offensive coordinator Matt Canada, and he is expected to return in 2023. One of the most scrutinized play callers in the entire league this year, guys, but they plan to run it back maybe to keep things consistent for Kenny Pickett, but you have to ask, is consistently bad play calling what you want for your young quarterback?
This one's a weird one.
We're on a roll
This
here
one's
this
definitely
morning.
a weird one. Last two seasons, 26th in yards per game and in points per game. Over the first 3 weeks of the season, they scored 4 total touchdowns. This is a team that was last in passing touchdowns this year, as anyone that had Deontay Johnson on their team this year is well aware. I mean, maybe they feel like Pickett made strides this year, but it definitely did feel like and it took a while for Najee Harris to get unlocked. It's a weird one. I mean, the Steelers went until the end, which is a credit to sort of Mike Tomlin. I feel like this one's a weird one to me.
I think Kenny Pickett was legitimately solid in the last 4 or 5 weeks. He engineered those 2 last-minute comebacks in prime time against the Raiders and the Ravens. So that's probably what saved Matt Canada's job. At the same time, body of work isn't great. But yeah, I think that's the reason why he's still there.
I mean,
if there's any hope, if you look at their first 8 games, they averaged 15 points per game. They went on a bye, came back, averaged 21. If you just looking for something that, you mentioned him down the stretch. So, that was a part of it, because you're certainly not encouraged by the 23rd ranked offense.
Right.
So that's at least something.
I mean, and there can also be, if there's anyone that has earned the benefit of the doubt in the National Football League, it's Mike Tomlin, right? I mean, and so maybe you have to figure, look, they were sort of hamstrung by Ben Roethlisberger, who's this iconic, future Hall of Fame quarterback, and it's just Ben's going to call, whenever Ben calls it quits is when, we're not going to force him out. So they were stuck with Ben Roethlisberger 2 years ago, who should not have been playing in the NFL. He was clearly a very subpar version of himself. And so now this year you come in, you've got Trubisky, and you've got a rookie quarterback. And so with what I think is universally regarded as not a great offensive line.
Absolutely.
And so maybe the feeling here is that Tomlin's just look, there are definitely issues with the offense, but they weren't Matt Canada's fault.
On a little bit more of the optimistic side, the Cardinals have begun looking for Cliff Kingsbury's replacement. They interview former Colts head coach Frank Reich. Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn is in the mix as well here, guys. This is a franchise that, outside of Kyler Murray, they essentially started from scratch this offseason, moving on both in the front office and at head coaching spot. And I think this just shows Reich is going to be right back in the head coaching circles.
I think that, weirdly, getting fired helped him.
Yeah.
Because, there was so much expectations for the Colts, and then obviously they disappointed, and so Frank Reich getting fired, and then Jeff Saturday coming in, and it being even more of a disaster. At least with Frank Reich, they were competitive. They didn't live up to expectations, but they were I think when he got fired, they were 3-3-1 or 3-4-1, something like that. Someone can get in my ear and tell me what the exact number was. But they were they were right there. You know what I mean? Again, they had underperformed, but whatever. Jeff Saturday won one game the rest of the way.
Yep.
2,
One.
I mean, right? He lost to a quarterback that just joined the team 2 days ago. He lost to oh no, he didn't. That was Josh McDaniels. Sorry, Josh McDaniels catching a stray bullet here. But I don't know. I mean, I do weirdly think that how badly the Colts finished the season under Jeff Saturday helped Frank Reich's reputation.
Yeah, I'm buying Frank Reich's stock. I think he's a good coach. I mean, 13 months ago, he was second favorite for Coach of the Year. Now he's looking for another job. Yeah. another job, by the way, from the guy who was Coach of the Year favorite, Cliff Kingsbury, 13 months ago. So it changes quickly. But I think Frank Reich, what he's shown as an offensive play caller, just his adaptability. I always think back to the game against Tampa Bay last year, where the Colts just abandoned Jonathan Taylor because they could not run. Mike McCarthy would have been running Jonathan Taylor for 2 yards every single play. Reich abandoned the run. He threw it 20 times in a row, and they were effective. So I think Frank Reich is a good coach, and I think he'll land on his feet.
And I think this is a good job, honestly, in Arizona.
They got a quarterback. Yeah.
But
Trading away D-Hop.
They're going to get rid of D-Hop, but you're still going to have Hollywood Brown. You're still going to have Rondell Moore, who I think is a nice piece. They've got Connor for multiple years, James Conner, so they'll have him. Ingram, I thought, showed some flashes this year. So, they have some pieces on offense. And to your point, like, they have a quarterback. Like, any coach in the NFL is just like, give me a quarterback and I will figure out the rest.
Yep.
I mean, so...
Also have the 3rd overall pick in the draft, which is a nice luxury to walk into because you can kind of reset your franchise with a franchise player with that selection as well. So it's just a matter, we know Kyler's not going to be ready to start the season. There has to be patience with whoever gets this job. So, all right, well, we'll keep it moving here to the Panthers. ESPN's Adam Schefter reports that they are interviewing Bills offensive coordinator Ken Dorsey for their head coach vacancy.
Right. He's at ESPN. Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, just wanted to put it out there.
I like that. Like, as opposed to just saying Adam Schefter, I like that you said ESPN's Adam Schefter because I was like, where is Adam these days?
I don't want to.
That's
Is he with them?
No, I think he still is.
Sure about that?
I'm not.
You sure?
I haven't checked.
Well, now you know.
Google that.
I'm assuming Connor's
That's
up to date
why
on that.
Yeah.
That's helpful.
It's like the Buffalo
That's
Bills
helpful.
is Josh Allen.
That's helpful to know. Let me check
Which
his
you have to
Twitter.
do because Jacksonville has
I'm
one.
going to check his.
That's true. That's fair.
I'm going to check his
example.
Twitter profile right now.
Professional host over here, fellas. Keep up.
And
still running with the
ESPN
bit.
senior NFL insider at Adam Schefter. Okay,
That's
there
right.
you go. That's well done.
Can
nice
be
job.
can be seen shirtless on Monday Night Football on occasion.
There you go.
We still waiting for you to do that, by the way.
Yeah,
Keep waiting.
Football Night in America, not copying that playbook?
Keep wait. Listen, my wife makes me turn off the lights. Look, no one needs to see this. No one in America needs to see this. My wife is contractually obligated to occasionally have to look at it, but no one else needs to.
Oh, man.
Lights off Barry.
That's right. 1000%.
So, Ken Dorsey, huh? How about it?
Ask Ross about Ken.
Let's talk about Ken Dorsey. Look, Ken Dorsey been putting in that work for years, and it's interesting. He gets a shot right here with the Panthers again. He got his first pro job as a scout with the Panthers in 2011. Went on to become the quarterback coach there for a few years, including the year where Cam Newton was MVP. Jumps to the Bills. He's there with Josh Allen for a long while, becomes their offensive coordinator, so he's done good work. So this could be it'll definitely be a good look from whatever the Panthers was going through this season.
Yep. Dorsey's resume goes beyond just Buffalo, but does anyone watch that Buffalo offense and think this is an amazing scheme, or is it just Josh Allen doing Superman
That's
stuff?
where I lean.
See, thank you.
No,
I was a little
right.
surprised
Yeah.
by this, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if I do a quick Ken Dorsey impression.
That was pretty good. The facial reaction, for sure.
Nuts.
Yeah, I'm screwed without my notes. I'm gonna have to
Just like
wing
Ken
it.
Dorsey.
I mean, I agree with you. Like, their offense is not nearly as good as it was last year under Brian Daboll. I mean, it's definitely taken a step back here.
Yeah, he ain't better than him. He ain't better than Dable.
He is not. The other thing that's been out there about the Panthers, kind of interesting here, and we can move on because we got a lot to get to, but is that supposedly David Tepper, who's the owner of the Carolina Panthers and is a very, very wealthy man, has basically, the rumors are is that like he wants Sean Payton in the worst way, and whatever it takes to get Sean Payton. And so you also think there's been rumors out there as well that Tom Brady wants to play with Sean Payton. There were rumors that they were going to go together in Miami a year ago. Again, none of this is confirmed. But, I mean, it's not like there's an incumbent quarterback in Carolina where you're like, sorry, Tom, if Sean goes there, he's got to make Sam Darnold work or whatever. Like, you could see a guy, hey, Tom, stay in the division, come here, we'll pay a ton of money. We'll pay Sean Payton a ton of money. You've got DJ Moore. You've got
Good defense.
DJ Moore.
I'm about to say, where are we going with that?
And DJ Moore. And DJ Moore is there. Don't forget DJ Moore. So, right. Yeah. I don't know. Somebody will go play with Tom. Right? I don't know.
I think so.
There was two things
anyway, that's
for me
just, that's
with
just
this
an,
one.
It gives me an example. You guys keep talking. I'm going to pick up my notes. And I'm going to do it this way. No one has to see my ass on TV. Do it this way.
Two things for me with this one, guys.
That's a pro move is what that was right there. Go ahead.
If Dorsey did get this job, which seems like a long shot, you'd think Joe Brady gets the bump up for the Bills' offensive coordinator job. And then this just kind of shows when you look at the Panthers' list of candidates they're talking to, it's guys that work hand-in-hand with quarterbacks. Their obsession with finding a franchise quarterback is clearly what they have their offseason sights on. It makes you wonder, is that going to be in the draft? Is that going to be if Lamar Jackson becomes available? Just a lot of trickle effects of their interview list.
Yeah, well, there's like 10 teams that need quarterbacks, but the good thing is there's about 10 quarterbacks available between the draft and free agency and trades. And it doesn't seem like there's normally this many.
Only 10?
Well, maybe a bit more. But yeah, between Carr and Garoppolo and Lamar Jackson, there are so many guys who are on the market in addition to all the quarterbacks in the draft.
Taylor Heineke available.
You ready for this one?
Carson Wentz available.
He gonna be available.
Yeah.
You ready for this one?
Okay, go for it.
NFL Network's Tom Pelissero.
Okay. Oh, that's where he is.
Tom
these
Pelissero
days.
from NFL Network reports.
Sure.
Dolphins pass game coordinator, quarterbacks coach Darrell Bevell informed the Jets and the Commanders and the Jets. He's saying no thanks to the interviews for the offensive coordinator jobs.
Like
that-
Boy, just the side of the desk hurting.
Wentz and Wilson.
We thought we couldn't take on any
Thanks,
more
but
water.
no thanks.
We're
Yeah.
just emptying the water.
Exactly. I
Darrell
don't have
Bevell.
a job, but I don't want that one.
I see what y'all did to y'all last offensive coordinator.
It doesn't get lower than that. When they
Darrell Bevell, who is famous for
Darrell Bevell won't meet with you guys.
Like I'm good.
That's like, I don't blame Darrell Bevell. Evil. I'd rather collect unemployment, right? That's right. I got a choice. I'd either go try to make Taylor Heineke a thing, or whoever they're gonna have. I guess Sam Howell. We'll see. I don't know. Right. Hey, to me, and by the way, this is a weird one. A little bit of a devil's choice here, but which I want. You and I are biased here. Let me ask Lawrence and Jay. If you had to pick one to be the offense coordinator of the Jets or the Commanders, which would be, I would argue. I'll lay it out for you very quickly.
Commanders.
Sam Howell, I think, has on the Commanders. You've got Sam Howell, who at least has showed some promise. You've got Sam Howell. You've got McLaurin. You've got Jahan Dotson. You've got some young talent there. No offensive line. Disastrous front office. I mean, not disastrous ownership group, right? Yeah. And challenges there. And Ron Rivera just threw his guy Scott Terror under the bus. Or
sewage
the
falling
Jets,
from the stadium too.
The Jets and sewage falling from the stadium. Or the Jets. Zach Wilson, but you've got Garrett Wilson, you've got Elijah Moore, you've got Breece Hall in theory when you come back.
And that
defense. And that defense, but tougher division. Actually, the NFC East.
Way tougher conference.
Tougher conference.
Definitely tougher conference.
But yeah, I mean, I don't think the Jets have anyone under contract right now that has as much potential upside as Sam Howell.
Yeah, I would still prefer the Jets just because they're going to fill. It's not going to be Zach Wilson next year. It's going to be Carr or Garoppolo or whoever.
Because I'm going to be like, who got a better chance of getting Lamar? That's what I want to know. Add that in there, too. That makes a difference.
We're just down the road.
Yeah.
Washington's just down the road from Baltimore. You don't got to move. We'll send you a car, Lamar. It's like, well, you don't got to move.
Unbelievable, yeah. I think, by the way, one thing that no one's brought up with all this, the quarterback carousels and all the openings, Brock Purdy being so good has to really hurt Jimmy G's stock, surely. That's what no one is bringing that up. If Brock Purdy can do this, then I think anyone can do this. I think Derek Carr is a better prospect than Jimmy Garoppolo if you're looking for a new quarterback.
Especially the injury history.
Yep.
Yeah, the question of if he will succeed elsewhere. The last one on the coaching list here, guys, this morning when we were getting ready for the show, Byron Leftwich officially fired by the Tampa Bay Bucs. So Todd Bowles
Wasn't he a head coaching candidate a year ago?
Chance to interview.
For
Jacksonville? I believe he interviewed for Jacksonville.
Yeah, for the Jaguars, for the Swaguars.
Yeah. Things change quickly in the coaching cycles of the NFL. So
in
Todd
the
Bowles
NFL.
will be looking for an offensive coordinator. It sounds like Todd Monken is on that list.
Todd
After
Monken,
two titles at Georgia.
Todd Monken is going to be a hot candidate,
He's
and
legit.
rightfully so. He should be. I think he'll have his pick of jobs, rightfully so. This one drives me crazy too. I don't think the Buccaneers' offense was great, but again, this feels like Todd Bowles doing what Ron Rivera did, what a number of head coaches have done this year, which is throwing their coordinators under the bus to save themselves. I think the issues with the Buccaneers went far beyond Byron Leftwich. I think he's being made to be a scapegoat the way that Scott Turner and the way a lot of other coordinators have been.
Yep. I'd say the difference is I don't think Washington's offense definitely didn't underperform its talent. Tampa Bay's offense, I think, underperformed its talent. That offense still should have been better, even with everything else going on. So this one isn't super surprising.
Yeah, but the problem is that, again, he's Tom Brady. And so how much input does he have into the – right? Tom Brady wants to audible every single play. Tom Brady can audible every single play. Yeah. Tom Brady says, I want Leonard Fournette out here on every play with me, or I want Rachaad White. That's what's happening. So it's just, again, I agree. I completely agree with you. They absolutely underperformed. Why they underperformed, we don't know. But I will say also that team looked completely unprepared. The defense underperformed as well.
Yeah,
all around. Like, it was bad from start to finish. At least on the offense, there's some excuses in terms of the injuries. Godwin started he was there from week 1, but he clearly wasn't Chris Godwin for a couple of weeks as he worked back from the ACL and whatever. Evans missed some games and whatever. I don't know.
All right, with that, we're going to take our first break. When we are back, we are previewing Saturday's matchups. We got Jacksonville-Chiefs right here on NBC and Giants going to Philadelphia.
Rayshon Jenkins in complimenting your team's resiliency compared you guys to cockroaches because you can't. He said you cannot kill. Okay, you cannot kill a cockroach. It's the longest living thing on earth. I'm just wondering what you think about the analogy. You sound like you find it either amusing or distressing, whatever.
I mean, cockroaches are kind of disgusting, and maybe that's what we are. I don't know. They are. I mean, I probably would have used a different analogy there.
Welcome back to the Fantasy Football Happy Hour. That was Jaguars coach Doug Peterson, not a fan of being labeled as cockroaches.
Don't blame him.
I kind of like it for them.
Do you?
Yeah.
So they just won't go away?
Yeah, they're obnoxious. Can't write them off.
Yeah, I know, but maybe there's something different than a cockroach. Somebody that just won't go away. You know, like is like an annoying party guest. You know, a Jay Croucher type. Just something like.
I thought you were going to go Todd Bowles, but Jay Croucher's fun too.
Or Todd
Bowles.
Todd
That's
Bowles
a
is
good
another one as well. But just feels like an easier shot just to take it at you right here. You know, you're just sort of right here. Like, every once in a while I like to try to drain the three, but, for the most part, I like the layups. You know me.
Whatever.
I like the layups.
At the rim.
All right, let's get into Saturday's first game here, and it will be right on NBC. Jacksonville traveling to Kansas City. The Chiefs are 8.5-point favorites. The over-under set at a whopping 53 points here, guys. We're going to talk plenty of daily fantasy for this one. So let's start right at the top with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Mahomes, a price of about $8,000. Travis Kelce hovering close to that at $7,700. We know what these guys can do. Are they worth that price?
We're using DraftKings prices, just full PPR scoring, just so you know, when we reference prices. Anyway, yeah, I mean, on Mahomes, I will say this: we expect this to be a high-scoring game. Patrick Mahomes off a bye is usually pretty good. Jags top 10 in terms of most fantasy points allowed to opposing quarterbacks. Oh, by the way, he's really good. I actually think the Jaguars will be able to move the ball against KC, so Mahomes will have to throw. In this one, I generally don't like paying up for quarterback here, but I do think he's actually worth it.
Yep, I'm with you there. And I think that it's a perfect recipe where the Jags' run defense is excellent. So I think the Chiefs, they will be willing to abandon the run, even if they are playing with the lead. And then the secondary, what's the track record of a secondary this bad with Jacksonville going to Kansas City and beating or giving Patrick Mahomes trouble?
Well, this. Andy Reid, not to cut you off, Jay, 21-3 after a bye in the regular season, 6-1 after a bie in the playoffs. So I think that's your answer.
Good luck.
That seems good. Yeah. Also, the Jags, they're a great story at the moment. They also did in December give up 40 to the Detroit Lions. They gave up, 34 to the Cowboys as well. This isn't a great defense, certainly not a great pass defense.
Yeah, I'm going to listen. And if you're doing a little Saturday DFS game, right, with the next game after that we'll talk about later between the Giants and the Eagles, we expect that to be a little more of a low-scoring game. So get your points while you can, because this game total is by far the highest of the whole weekend. So get your quarterback, take them 300 yards and them 3 touchdowns, and set the rest of the lineup. Go cheaper somewhere else.
I think the most difficult thing to break down in this game is the Chiefs' backfield. When you look at, of course, Jerick McKinnon, who's been excellent to close out the season, Isaiah Pacheco. We know Clyde Edwards-Helaire is practicing. There's no word on what his impact will be in this game, if any at all. But with these two guys right here, here's their last 5 games from each. A pretty good balance, but McKinnon clearly the bigger impact back in terms of receiving.
He's the more expensive running back here, and I also prefer him, right? I mean, so since week 13, he's been the second best running back in fantasy. A lot of that, powered by touchdowns. He's scored now in 6 straight games. But you think about the fact that, again, we just said we think a lot of points are going to be scored, so both teams are going to have to be throwing. The Jaguars, and think of how you try to attack Jacksonville. The Jaguars give up the 2nd most receptions and the 3rd most receiving yards to running backs during the regular season. Now, they made a point of shutting down Austin Eckler, and so that didn't manifest itself. But that was a weird game for a lot of different reasons here. But his over-under on BetMGM in receiving yards, Jerick McKinnon, is 33.5. And I really like the over on that.
Yeah.
Week 18, the Chiefs didn't really play their starters. They were locked in. They only played, a series or 2. But prior to that, he had hit that number, 33.5, in 3 of the previous 4 games. The one game he didn't was that Week 16 game against Seattle where he had 31 yards. So give me the over on 33.5 receiving yards for Jerick McKinnon in this one. And I think he's I do like him in this game. So apparently just literally I looked it up. It's not to 34.5. It's unbelievable because I swear to God, literally in the commercial break, I looked it up to make sure I had the most accurate line. So literally in the last minute, BetMGM's raising me a yard.
They just heard you say it.
It's going up each minute.
Look at me moving the line.
Look at you.
It's
Look at you.
outrageous.
Market mover.
Yeah,
Very boost.
apparently I'm young Billy Walters over here. Anyway, whatever. I like the over for Jerick McKinnon.
McKinnon had 8 targets last time they played Jacksonville in the receiving game.
Yeah.
Looking for value here, Jay, I'll start with you on Juju Smith-Schuster. He's priced at $5,100. We know the roller coaster he's been on this year, and obviously very slow finish in general to the season. Is there any confidence level in Juju at that price?
I think so, just because of the upside and also just because of the matchup, where I don't think the Jags will have any answers for Juju for the passing game in general. So we didn't do too much in these games. There are also games where the Chiefs were playing with a lead. They were pretty conservative. I think that they will uncork Juju a little bit more in the playoffs, get him going for the rest of the postseason. What do you think, Lawrence?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I'll go even cheaper on the slate, right, and mess with Kadarius Toney. His last game, they made an effort to get him the ball every which type of way, lined him up in the slot. In the backfield, he returns punts sometimes. I don't know how much that'll help you in DFS, but the point is, now that he's back and he's healthy, they've been getting him the ball. He scored a touchdown. They called it back. Boom, he scored. They gave it to him again. He scored a touchdown. So with Juju not being as consistent, I like Juju, but if I'm going to have Patrick Mahomes and Kelsey in the lineup, then the receiver I might have to take is a Kadarius Toney.
We don't expect Mecole Hardman to play in this game, and no, I would say that Kadarius Toney much more of a tournament play than a cash game play. But to your point, Lawrence, they've had 2 weeks to prepare for this game against the Jaguars. So Andy Reid, again, you mentioned the record off the bye, both in the playoffs and the regular season. He's always fantastic. There'll be some weird wrinkles in there, and you could see some trick plays or some interesting formations to get Kadarius Toney the ball in space. Yeah.
Lawrence, on the Jacksonville side, Travis Etienne and Christian Kirk priced pretty closely. $6,400 for Etienne. Christian Kirk is set at $6,000. If you had to go between just one of these guys, who's the better play?
Yeah, in this particular matchup, again, we mentioned how the over-under is at 53 because of that and because of how Christian Kirk performed against the Chiefs the first time, 9 catches, 405 yards. I would actually go with him. Now, obviously, Etienne being the running back, he's going to get more opportunities to touch the ball, but most of that will be out of the backfield running the ball. Christian Kirk in a game where we expect the Jaguars to be playing from behind, I would favor him more, and that should present a better value.
Chiefs gave up the 8th most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers during the regular season as well. That's an area where you can attack. I agree with you there in terms of Kirk over Etienne in a PPR format.
Jay, hearing that with the Chiefs secondary, is there any value hunting with Zay Jones and Evan Ingram, both priced below $5,000? Zay Jones, $4,700. Evan Ingram, who we've seen explode here and there this season under Doug Peterson at 4,300 for the tight end slot.
Yeah, I think you just load up on Jags pass catches just because we expect that they will be trailing and they will be able to move the ball. Zay Jones had 10 targets last time they played the Chiefs, so he's probably the guy at target.
But by the way, and to that point, like, I actually think Trevor Lawrence is interesting in this game quite a bit as well. I mean, again, over the course of the regular season, no team in the NFL gave up more touchdown passes than the Kansas City Chiefs. I believe they also they were like top 3 in the NFL in terms of most pass attempts against, which is just a number that tells you what you already know, right? That teams have to throw a lot against Kansas City because their offense is so explosive. So I do think Lawrence is pretty interesting here. Like, I think the Jaguars, look, Chiefs are winning this game, but I think the Jaguars make it an entertaining, fun one. A game that you're going to want to watch the entire way on NBC and Peacock. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
And, and that I think Lawrence performs well here.
All right, guys, moving over to the NFC.
Like, we got to start
calling still out of you.
We got to start calling this guy just Trevor, especially if they somehow beat the Chiefs. It's just Trevor.
Okay, fair enough. Understood.
NBC's Lawrence, Jaguars Lawrence.
Are we really claiming him?
I moved him over. No, I started with Roto World and I moved over.
NBC Sports Edges.
I'm slithering in.
You are.
You see me slithering in. I'm a big leverage guy.
Yeah, you are.
I be leveraging my stuff, man.
Wake up one day and Lawrence has got the corner office, and we're just like, how the hell did this happen?
He's doing the weather report on the actual NBC News channel.
Exactly.
Yeah, we've seen it before.
On the golf channel and everything. Don't even watch golf. I'm still there.
Who's next to Hoda? Is that Lawrence?
How did he get there?
How did he get there?
He walks out of one studio, goes into the next. It's like a car wash.
What the hell?
All right, moving over to the NFC matchup. The Giants underdogs by 7.5 points against the Eagles. Solid total in this game, guys, 48 points. So plenty of points expected in this one. Let's start right with the Eagles. There's been a lot of discourse around Jalen Hurts, especially with that Week 18 finish that was not great, and the health status of Jalen Hurts. So, Jay, I'll start with you here. He's priced at $7,600. Do you think we saw the Jalen Hurts that carried a lot of fantasy teams throughout the year?
Yeah, I think Jalen Hurts is going to be fine. And the reason why, 2 things. 1, full participant as practice, wasn't limited in any way. And then 2, he played in Week 18. And that was a game against the Giants backups where if he was seriously hurt and they were worried about his availability for the playoffs, then they could have put Gardner Minshew out there and they would have been 15-point favorites anyway. So I think Hurts, as bad as he looked against the Giants, I think there were just elements of rust, maybe he was a little bit hurt. I think that he's going to come out. I think he's going to be very close to the Jalen Hurts, who was the #1 quarterback in fantasy on a points-per-game basis.
I agree with everything you said. This is my fantasy ride or die, and yet I'm probably not picking him. He's only $400 less than Mahomes, who I feel is kind of a safer bet, right? Because remember, last 2 games that Jalen Hurts has played, he's got 0 touchdown passes. He's played one game since December 18th, so maybe is there some rust in the first half? Or, by the way, I might go Daniel Jones, who is basically, Jalen Hurts light, right? A guy with some passing touchdown upside, some rushing upside as well. He's $2,000 cheaper. He's $5,800 in this game. And so I just sort of feel like at the price point, as much as I like Jalen Hurts, as much as I think he performs well, as much as I think the Eagles win this game, I actually think in terms of the pricing, I think I'd either rather pay a few more dollars up for somebody that I feel is a little bit more of a sure thing or go cheaper than Hurts at $7,600.
Yep, that's fair. I'd rather have Mahomes. Easier matchup.
Lawrence, looking at the Birds' dynamic receiving duo, A.J. Brown priced at $7,600, Devontae Smith priced at $7,200. Very, very similar here. Certainly a game where both could go off, as simple as that. But if you have to pick one, factoring in the prices that are only a $400 difference, who are you rolling with?
I'm a bargain shopper. I'm going to go with the Slim Reaper, Devontae Smith. Now, speaking of very close in price in DFS, right? Their last 6 games, both 9.5 targets a game, both 6.5 receptions, the other 5.8. The difference is A.J. Brown's been averaging 110 yards to Devontae Smith's 98. But again, that's why he's a little cheaper. They both scored 4 touchdowns the last 6 games, so it really is neck and neck. So at that point, you're just like, all right, I'll take my little extra $400 and go with Devontae Smith.
By the way, I like the fact that you had to clarify that you're a bargin shopper, even though you're sitting there wearing a 1980s Whitney Houston T-shirt.
Hey, straight out of Marshall's.
I mean, clearly, like that. I mean, that shirt is probably 25 years old.
Yeah, got to represent.
That shirt's older than my kids.
Frugal.
Right. That shirt might be older than Connor, by the way.
There's a chance. The odds are a lot closer than people think.
Yeah.
Slight chance. Yes.
All right, looking over at the Giants here, guys. You talked about Daniel Jones being one of your value plays. I mean, 5,800, that's obviously low for the quarterback pricing. The same cannot be said about Saquon Barkley, who's just a shade under $8,000, $7,900 for Barkley. Is there any concerns on his workload? We saw this become the Daniel Jones rushing show against the Vikings.
I don't think he's worth the price at that. I mean, he's
high.
just again, like the Eagles had a really good run defense, then they were a brutal run defense, but they've now gotten healthier. My expectation here is that he's a focal point of their defensive efforts here as well. You think about that Week 14 against the Eagles, in which the Eagles played to try to win. He had single-digit rushes in that one. To me, to be at $7,900, that's too expensive. Like, he's really good, but you're going to need the touchdowns to pay off. He honestly didn't have that great a game against Minnesota. You didn't mind because he scored the 2 touchdowns, but it was the Daniel Jones show against the Vikings. So, for me, at the price point, I think he'll be fine performance-wise, but I'm not going there price-wise.
It's going to be tough performance-wise, too. 48 total yards in Week 14 when the Giants played the Eagles.
Yep.
So be wary of that, especially at that price.
Yeah, and I think the thing is that like the days of Barkley getting 24 carries, they're gone. Now that the Giants have real receivers, the fact that James and Hodgins have broken out along with Slayton, Daboll trusts Jones more and more. Jones is playing better and better. They're just going away from Barkley. Past 8 games, he hasn't had more than 18 carries in any game.
By the way, just while I want to take 1 second here for Daniel Jones. Because, by the way, and rightfully so, but everyone in the universe, especially the New York media, which I include Connor Rogers, and you're part of the New York media, part of the New York elite media.
Elite. In the pores.
Everyone and their brother absolutely just completely crapped on Dave Gettleman for the Daniel Jones pick, right? And, he made a lot of other mistakes as general manager of the New York Giants. But I'm just going to say that, whatever. It took a while, right? It took the right coaching staff. It took a coach in Daboll who Gettleman did not hire. But the fact of the matter is that Gettleman, the big debate at that point was Daniel Jones or Dwayne Haskins, right? And R.I.P. Dwayne Haskins. But the fact of the matter is that he made the right call. Daniel Jones is going to be a very expensive quarterback this offseason, right? I mean, they're going to franchise tag him if they
don't have the fifth-year option.
Right, because they didn't pick up the fifth-year option.
That's how bad things looked once upon a time.
100%. But, I don't know. I just want to give Dave Gettleman his due on Daniel Jones, right?
Unbelievable. It's 50 to 1 that Matthew Berry is going to have a Dave Gettleman pro speech.
I don't know.
500 to 1.
Whatever. We've taken dumps on that guy for 5 years. You know what I mean? Yeah. And so
we had to give him credit, right?
We have to give him credit on Daniel
drafting
Jones.
a quality starter.
You know who doesn't have a bad word to say about Dave Gettleman? Kenny Galladay, who's paid by the Giants for the next 3 years of guaranteed money.
Our generation's Bobby Bonilla.
It's not everybody in New York that hates Dave Gettleman. He doesn't have a fan of Kenny Galladay.
Probably Mama Galladay. Probably loves
huge fan. All the Galladays.
All the Galladay.
The cousins, everybody.
Everyone. Kenny Galladay's personal assistant, everyone.
Everybody's doing well for the Galladays.
Kenny Galladay's car.
Yes.
Yeah, everyone likes Dave Gettleman there.
All right, to close out the Saturday preview here, guys, we're looking at the best bets. And Jay,
are there any of these receivers that you guys like real quickly before we move off the Giants? Any of these receivers you like?
The bargain shopping
on the Giants.
Hodgins is at 4,900, Slayton's at 4,200, and then Richie James is all the way down to 3,900.
Give me Richie if he that cheap.
I stay away from the Eagles secondary personally.
Well, except if you're gonna you don't want to go against Slay or Bradbury, so that's why Richie James at 3,900. If you're punting the position, I think he's sort of interesting because the slot is one area that you can attack Philadelphia.
Yep.
Jay, best bets for this game. Not for this game, but for the entire Saturday slate, including Jacksonville and Kansas City.
Yep, so starting with that game, I like the Chiefs -8.5. Sorry, producer Steven, big Jags fan. This line is already pushing towards 9, so get it now while you can. I just think that the Jags secondary, those weaknesses have not been exploited the past 2 weeks by Josh Dobbs and then the uninspiring Joe Lombardi. And that offense without Mike Williams. So I think the Chiefs are just going to roll them at home. The fairy tale ends here for the Jags/Cockroaches. Miles Sanders over 66.5 rushing yards. Ooh. This is a play on the Eagles. I just think that the Eagles, they're healthier than we expected. Josh Sweat is going to play. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, Lane Johnson. Hurts off the injury report. I think that this is going to be the team that was running away with the 1 seed before they started getting hurt. And when Miles Sanders played the Giants in the one real game that these teams played, 17 carries for 144 yards. So I think that they're going to dominate time of possession, which feeds into the next bet. Sorry, Daniel Dimes. I know that the world is all abuzz about you, and so is this desk, rightfully so. But I think he goes under 273.5 combined passing and rushing yards. The reason for that is mainly time of possession. The Eagles won that by 5 minutes when these two teams played in that real game about 6 weeks ago, and Daniel Jones only had 195 combined passing and rushing yards.
Yeah.
So I think the Eagles are going to blow them out, and I think that they're going to control the clock, and it's just going to be tough for Daniel Jones against a healthier Eagles
Like
defense.
that, Jay.
Fair enough. I got a couple of quick bets already up for the Saturday slate. I mentioned the Jerick McKinnon. It's already getting up there, but I like the over on 33.5 or even 34.5.
It's now at 38.5.
It's probably
It's actually
right.
80.5.
Right.
now, so, yeah,
Anyway,
it's-
I like the over on 34.5 for Jerick McKinnon in terms of the receiving yards. I like the over on Trevor Lawrence, 1.5 passing touchdowns. Again, no team in the NFL has given up more passing touchdowns than the Kansas City Chiefs this year. And just a fun one. Boston Scott. Where we do, anytime
Giant
touchdown,
killer.
Boston
Yeah.
Scott.
Why
Again,
not?
16 touchdowns in his career, 10 against the New York Giants. He always kills the Giants. He's plus 350 for anytime touchdown at BetMGM. Why not throw a couple of bucks there on Boston Scott? See if the magic continues.
The great Boston Scott.
Yes.
All right. All right.
I'm not wrong though, but I mean, right?
Connor wasn't impressed with that pick.
Yeah, Boston Scott. All right, we'll talk Sunday slate.
The NFL playoffs continue with the divisional round showdown as Trevor Lawrence and the Jags take on Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time on NBC and Peacock, presented by Intuit TurboTax.
Hello?
Switch numbers?
I guess I put the wrong one on. Well, so what happened was I forgot about the press conference, and so I also have new pants on, and so I threw my jersey back on, but apparently it wasn't my jersey.
There we go. Has it been that type of day?
I guess it's been that kind of day, huh?
That was Joe Burrow. I'm wearing the wrong jersey to his press conference. Been that kind of day. Could be that kind of day Sunday, as Joe Burrow might not have his offensive line here, fellas.
Put on his wrong offensive line.
Jonah Williams and Alex Kappa did not practice Wednesday, so something to keep an eye on there. The Bills are favored by 5.5 in this game. They are at home. Of course, the over-under point total is set at 48.5. So let's get into the rosters here. And we'll start with you, Barry, looking at the better stack here. Of course, Josh Allen and his old friend Stephon Diggs, or Joe Burrow with or without an offensive line with Jamar Chase.
I think I'd prefer Burrow and Chase just because cheaper, right? You know,
Better price,
Burrow's at 6,500 versus Josh Allen at 7,800. You know, Josh Allen looked sloppy last week against the Dolphins, and now he's got a tougher matchup against a Bengals defense that's pretty good. Cincinnati gave up the third fewest fantasy points and third fewest receptions per game to opposing wide receivers this season. Diggs is going to be obviously a focal point of that defensive effort. I feel better about Jamar Chase than I do about Stephon Diggs, as weird as that sounds. I mean, they're both awesome, but just with Chase, he's had 11 targets in 5 straight games, right? He's had 80 receiving yards and a receiving touchdowns in back-to-back games. Diggs is 7,700, Chase is 7,800, so they're basically a wash. So I feel better about Chase, and I'd rather save the 1,000 on Burrow versus Allen. So if you're asking me those two stacks, I prefer Burrow and Chase. I get the offensive line issues as well, but they'll get him in the shotgun. Burrow's fairly mobile. And that's the other thing about Chase is that, weirdly, Chase has become the possession receiver. Yeah. Again, I'm not saying he's a Danny Amendola or anything like that, but weirdly, like, his reception, he's gotten a ton of receptions.
Yeah.
If you've been watching these Bengals, like, when he gets it out quickly, he's obviously looking for Jamar Chase early and often.
Yep. I think Chase just has a higher floor because there's games where Diggs just disappears and he's just
Right.
unsighted, whereas Chase, I think it's impossible for that to happen just because of the sheer target volume.
And I think to piggyback off that, Jay, looking at the number 2 wide receivers in that game, you can't just dedicate all that attention to Chase and forget about T. Higgins, who's priced at $5,800 in this game. Gabe Davis significantly less at $4,800. Taking the pricing into value, though, are you still rolling with Higgins?
I still am rolling with Higgins just because the Bengals are 5.5-point favorites. And the good thing about Joe Burrow having decimated Oh, sorry, they're 5.5-point underdogs, so they will be throwing. And so the good thing about Joe Burrow not having an offensive line is that he's used to it. He's got experience not having an offensive line. He's won all of last season. Yeah. So I think that the passing game will be fine enough for Higgins to provide value.
Yeah. Certainly, big game Gabe, or as Tony Romo likes to call him, Big Game Davis.
He also kept calling the Bills the champs. Did you catch that? I really was.
Champs of the AFC East?
Yeah. Because that's the only thing they champs of.
Got that $19 million. There's a little Hainsworth thing going on.
So he just mailed it in.
Yeah, exactly. I got my $19 million a year. I got my $19 million for 10 years or whatever it is. Like $18 million a year for 10 years. Like I'm gonna.
I like how you compared it to Albert Hainsworth, though.
No, there's been no greater example of signing a big deal and then completely phoning it in than Albert Hainsworth with my Washington professional football team. Like I said this is an old joke on my whole podcast when I signed my last deal with ESPN and people were joking about that. I'm like, oh, I'm total Hainsworthing it now. And that's what I've done here at NBC. God bless. 3 more years, Peacock. 3 more years.
He somehow
after this one.
Not many can pull off the double Hainsworth.
The double Hainsworth.
Yeah, that's rarely seen, but you have executed it.
I really have. It's super impressive. Anyway, but Davis becomes interesting again. Like, he does have there's clear talent there. We do expect scoring to be happening, and because of the attention that that Stephon Diggs gets. And by the way, Isaiah McKenzie missed last week. He's banged up. I don't know if he'll be able to make it. So then you've got like Cole Beasley who had a bad drop, and then you got Shakir, the rookie, who also had they didn't call it a drop, but it was a bad drop, right? I do think Josh Allen will look for Gabe Davis a decent amount. 2 of the last 3 games that he's had in his last 3 playoff games, he's had at least 8 targets and 100 receiving yards. So Gabe Davis at 4,800 is a pretty interesting tournament play.
Lawrence, despite Joe Mixon going under 40 rushing yards in 3 of his last 4, not much of a discount here at 6,500 for Mixon. Do you trust the Cincinnati run game at all?
Yeah, no, it's going to be tough, especially when we just talked about the offensive line and Jay mentioned, well, Joe Burrow's used to having this line. Well, he's used to having that offensive line and still being able to throw the ball. It'll be tough for them to run against the Buffalo Bills defense, who didn't give up much of anything in the running game against the Dolphins in the wild card run, but they were still, the defense was still vulnerable through the pass game. So I think that's how the Bengals will make their money here in this game. He's getting the touches, 20-plus touches in 4 of the last 5 games, but it's not accumulated to no yards.
Jay, any value plays in this game? Hayden Hurst, Dawson Knox, obviously tight ends that do see some production, and then you have Tyler Boyd, who has not done a ton traditionally in the playoffs throughout his career, but obviously their pricing will come in with a bargain chip.
Yeah, I think Dawson Knox will be the play here just because he's scored in 5 straight and's got that upside. So Dawson Knox is the best bargain basement guy.
All right, guys, let's move over to Dallas, San Francisco. This line has moved. San Francisco is now favored by 4 points at home against the Cowboys. The over-under is set at 46, which, call me crazy, feels a little low in this game. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But Christian McCaffrey and Deebo coming in here. McCaffrey priced at $8,000. Deebo priced at $5,900. Barry, do you think that's low for Deebo, being under $6,000?
Yeah, double-digit touches in 3 of the last 4 games. He scored a touchdown in 3 of the last 4 games. His last 4 playoff games, he's averaged 19.9 fantasy points per game. Oh, by the way, he's really good.
Just a little bit.
Throwing a bunch of stats out. He's really good. He's clearly going to be a focal point for Kyle Shanahan. Again, one of the things, look, the Dallas defense showed up. Give props where props are due. The Dallas defense showed up in a big way against Tampa Bay. But if there's a couple of criticisms that you can sort of lob at them, and one of them is that they take chances. They over pursue sometimes. They are very aggressive on defense, which sometimes works out for them, but sometimes doesn't. And when you're over aggressive and you miss against Deebo Samuel, he makes you pay. And so that feels at 5,900, that feels like one of those things where they have an algorithm, and just based on his recent stats, because he was injured and he missed some time, but that feels like a real opportunity there on Deebo Samuel.
Yep, I agree. And the whole thing is that if you can block Micah Parsons, then the Dallas defense just isn't that good because the secondary is super banged up, has been banged up all year. Yep. You can get a lot of yards after the catch against Dallas, and I think that Trent Williams and those guys, they can probably block Micah Parsons. So I think they'll be able to score.
George Kittle's a really good blocker. Like, I mean, no one ever talks about that because of everything else that goes along with his game, but George Kittle's a very good blocker.
Something's got to give, definitely.
Yeah. Jay, one of the more interesting parts of this game from a daily fantasy perspective is the quarterbacks. Brock Purdy valued at just 5,400. Dak Prescott not much higher at 6,100. And you look here, obviously Purdy and Dak coming off a massive game. Both of these guys found the end zone easily in the wild card round. Are you rolling with Purdy's value or the more typically reliable nature of Dak?
I think Dak, just because Dak is probably more projectable, more consistent. I prefer both of these guys at their values to either of the guys in the other NFC matchup in Hurts or Jones. I think Dak, what he showed against Tampa Bay, he's fine. I think you throw out the weird Washington game, he looked like the guy that we expected and wanted to see in the playoffs. Purdy, though, is interesting because, look, I don't think Brock Purdy's that good, and I don't think it even matters because of Shanahan and the skill position guys. So 5,400, that seems too low for Purdy with all those weapons against the Dallas pass defense, which I think still is exploitable if you can stop Parsons.
By the way, I will say, just your point about Dak Prescott, like 49ers run defense is really, really good.
Yes.
And so you're fighting against Mike McCarthy's tendencies, but
Right.
Or Jerry Jones calling down saying, hey, keep running Zeke into the middle. But the fact of the matter is, over the last 6 weeks, dating back into the regular season, the 49ers defense is 30th against the pass. Like, you can throw against the Niners. That secondary has also taken on some chances. So in a game in which where we expect them to have to throw because that's how they're going to move the ball, Dak Prescott becomes kind of interesting here, especially with friend of the podcast, my personal friend, Eights. I call him Eights, CeeDee Lamb.
All right, let's get into Sunday's best bets here. Jay, what do you like in both of these games?
Yeah, so in these two games, like Jamar Chase, over 82.5 receiving yards, averaging almost 13 targets a game over his past 5. We saw against Baltimore that he doesn't need the deep ball. He didn't have a single reception for 20 or more yards and still got insane volume with the shorter, more intermediate stuff. And also the Bills secondary is a lot more susceptible than it has been in years past. Brock Purdy to throw an interception. The yes is minus 115. He's been great at avoiding turnover-worthy plays. At the same time, this Dallas defense is going to be the best that he plays. I think that Dallas will be able to stop the run more than other defenses playing San Francisco have recently. He's going to need to throw. It's going to be tighter windows. He still is prone to the occasional moment of madness, so I think he will throw at least one interception. But then I also think his longest pass completion will be over 37.5 yards. I do think this Dallas defense is susceptible to the big play. So what Gardner Minshew did against them, just lighting them up with big plays. I think that Parsons and Lawrence will be able to get blocked. And look, the 38-yard pass play, it might be a 5-yard pass through the air, but Deebo and McCaffrey can take it 38 yards, so I think he will go over.
Barry, anything you're tailing on there or anything you got in your own in this game?
I definitely like the Jamar Chase over. I like that quite a bit. But you know what I love in that Cincinnati Buffalo Bills game? What I absolutely love.
Kicker prop.
Tyler Bass, over 1.5 field goals. It's minus 105. Like, again, I think those are two pretty good defenses. I think they tighten up in the red zone as well. Evan McPherson, Money Mac, is also at plus money for over 1.5. I feel better about Bass than McPherson. But I think both, I like the over on both. 1.5 made field goals for each one of those guys in that game.
Is Brett Maher going to be set at like plus 500?
That poor guy.
It's a fair question. There might be some value there.
Tyler Bass over 1.5 field goals. That's
all
fine.
Right.
You laugh at the kicker props, but you know what? They cash just the same as your Brock Purdy interception
on the
ones,
board.
brother.
All right, with that, we are taking one more break. When we're back, it is time for last call as we look at the odds for the highest and lowest scoring games of the weekend. The action never stops at BetMGM. Sign up now using bonus code BERRY, and your first wager is risk-free, up to $1,000. Simply download the BetMGM app today or go to BetMGM.com and enter bonus code BERRY to make your first wager risk-free, up to $1,000. It is time for last call here, fellas, and we are talking highest, lowest scoring games. Let's look at the odds for the highest scoring game of the week right there. Jay, let's start with you. Do you like the chalk pick, or is there value in here somewhere?
I like the long shot. I like Cowboys 49ers, plus 40, plus 425 there. I think that there is a chance that just neither of these teams can stop the other. Both explosive offenses. Look like the weather is going to be good in Santa Clara. 15 degrees Celsius. You guys know where you can take your Fahrenheit. That is a nice day.
As far as the highest scoring game, I'm going to go a little bit of value here and go Bills and Bengals at plus 290 as the highest scoring game right there. Just look at the quarterbacks and receivers in that game.
Yeah, it's totally fair.
Yeah. What's that?
I was just going to say, listen, the Bengals should have shut down the Ravens a lot better than they did, and they did not. And obviously, the Bills are the Bills. So
and we've
fair
seen
enough.
Joe Burrow overcome no offensive line many times, so no fear on that as well.
No fear. It's closing time, which means you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. For Lawrence Jackson, Connor Rogers, Jay Croucher, I'm Matthew Berry. Good luck this weekend. Peace out. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBC Sports and RotoWorld.com. Just want to thank you so much for watching what you just watched, or at least being too lazy to click out of it after the autoplay just kept it going. So either way, thank you so much for just letting it scroll by your screen. And now I'd like to ask you respectfully, please subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel for the latest NFL news, fantasy headlines from RotoWorld, and betting analysis from NBC Sports Edge.